Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2081, and we're with Meredith.
Hello.
Hello. So we're going to talk about tough love today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a master's in it.
Oh, yeah? Yes, you do. I think you have a doctorate, actually.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
Yes. So to start off, what does tough love mean to you? Like the tough love balance, what does this terminology mean?
Tough love, suck it up. Tough love balance, suck it up sometimes.
Suck it up, but it's okay if you haven't yet?
Yeah. Like maybe you actually can't suck it up. It's a tough love balance.
It's like the season of life you're in, yes. Mm-hmm. So the one way I think of it is in a sense, like learning to parent yourself.
Yes.
Is learning to push yourself, be tough on yourself, and push yourself to adhere to certain standards and improve those standards over time.
Right.
But love yourself in the moments when you fail or fall behind or everything becomes overwhelming. And being mean to yourself isn't creating positive change. And in that case, you then have to learn how to love yourself into positive change. That's
a good clarification, because tough love doesn't mean you're a piece of shit, do better. Tough love means...
Sometimes it has.
Yes. But there's the love in it.
The love, yes.
The love is a little more... you can do this. You're stronger than this.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. And what's interesting... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say versus... Suck it up, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, tough love balance is, as with anything in life, you look at height. Some people are 5 foot tall, some people are 7 foot tall. Tough love balance is some people are going to be naturally on the tougher side of the tough love. They are too tough. They need more love. Other people love themselves, meaning they excuse away poor behavior and just things that aren't progressing them. Right. They excuse it away. They make excuses. They say it's okay. Like, I'm working on it. And then you would look at it from the outside and be like, you're not working on anything. I don't see any progression. So there are people who are too tough, people who are too lovey-dovey. And it's learning that balance. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think you and I both err on the side of too tough.
Yeah. So we've had to be work on the love part. Yeah.
Yeah. Actively work on the love part.
Yes. And it's interesting because whenever I started my lifting journey, I hated the way I looked. And I associated the way I looked with being mentally weak. I was mentally weak to allow myself to have looked like that.
Right.
So I hated myself physically and mentally. Yeah. And that hate was fuel for a lot of years to train like literally every single day for years on end, and to train to the point where like I used to hit my boxing, we had a heavy bag in the garage, and I would hit it until my knuckles were bleeding, but that was then like satisfying because I'm punishing that old Rob. Awesome. And I'm becoming a new Rob. So those are like the sadistic kind of hate things. But it worked for a long time until it didn't.
Yeah.
And I think what some people might find is they either have to learn to establish that balance the first time, or they have to learn that what got me here isn't going to get me what's going to get me next.
Do you remember that when you say it worked until it didn't, do you remember the point at which it no longer worked?
In college.
Okay.
So so the short version is, due to hating myself, I was nitpicky about myself a lot.
Right.
And a couple of the things is, number one is I'm blind in my left eye. Mm-hmm. And especially when I was younger and when I'm tired, my left eye crosses a little bit. And it made me paranoid to meet people.
Aww.
Because I would meet somebody and it would happen and it was like soul crushing. Aww. But you would walk up and you'd say hi to somebody and they would look off to the left. They would look behind them to the left because they thought I was looking at somebody else.
Aww.
And it's like, oh, damn. So the other component is I have verifiable proof from an expert that my voice is in the middle of a male and female range.
Yes.
Because I have Pierre Robin syndrome and some surgeries on my throat. So I was this cross-eyed kid with a girly voice, and no matter how much I hated myself, I couldn't change that with hate. I could change the way I looked with hate by lifting weights. I would get leaner, I would build bigger muscle, I could get stronger, but the hate couldn't change those things.
Reasonable.
So I started to realize, well, crap, hate isn't going to work. Like, I can't hate myself into a better life because I was becoming more recluse. I wouldn't meet people. I didn't want to shake hands with people. I didn't want to look at people. And as I hated myself more, that only got worse.
Right.
So then you're like, well, I got to try something else.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to just realize the good things in me are worth getting through the awkward stages of meeting somebody. So typically if somebody noticed my eye, they only noticed it the first couple times, then it was normal. If they noticed my voice, I never really got verification that was, like, nobody did anything in response. Like, nobody said, holy crap, your voice is weird. But as they would get used to me, that just became who I was.
Right.
And then the value of me could show. So I had to realize, okay, I have to be okay with the way I am because I can't change any of it. But once I get past that stuff, I can then show value and people will like who I am once they get past that.
Yeah.
So that was my example of love. Do you have an example of where, like, you needed to love yourself more?
Similar to your, like you said, your eye and your voice. That was my calves for me.
Oh yeah, your calves. Yes.
My calves for me. And it got to the point where I forget what podcast we talked about it, but I was at least smart enough to realize if you starve yourself to the point of unhealthy, your body will eat away muscle. Mm-hmm. So I thought if I got unhealthy enough, my body will start to eat away at my calves.
Yeah, so for listeners, your calves were very large for a dancer.
Yes.
And you were told by, like, your teachers that you were too muscular, you had tree trunk legs, and so your calves, when we say your calves, is because they were too muscular.
Right, and I would get teased in gym class, right, when you're running around the gym and you're all wearing uniforms, and, like, people behind me I vividly remember the scene where it was, are you going to trip over your calves? Are they heavy to run with?
Oh, God.
It just really nasty stuff? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, asked if I had calf implants when I was 16. I looked like I was 24, but you
were dangerous. Like,
yeah.
At 16, you looked like you could have been in college.
Yeah. But it just that really got to me. I was very, very self-conscious, and I was really hard on myself for that. On the flip side, as an adult dealing with adult things, when I wanted but also knew I needed to leave teaching.
Oh, yes.
I remember it got to the point where a friend of mine told me she was resigning, and I was envious.
Oh.
And then I thought, oh, that's not good. Like, I recognized that feeling, like,
that's an unhealthy.
Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
And that was a warning to me. But when you want to leave teaching, most teachers will say you have a very small window. Most don't leave during the school year. You wait until summer. That's not a huge corporate hiring season. And then teachers are looked at like you can't do a damn thing.
Yeah,
so
which is crazy.
I couldn't
teachers
get
are
a job.
Very disrespected in corporate business.
Awful. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
I applied. I had been applying for jobs, and the only thing I get was like entry level sales.
Yeah.
And I've helped other teachers, but what I have learned is that we all have the same mindset of there's so much shame put on you
to leave teaching.
If you leave teaching, you were never really in it. Like if you get a divorce, you never really loved him, which also falls.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I remember getting a lot of like cold shoulders when I had mentioned I was resigning. I
could see people being kind of like rude about that.
And I questioned myself. I said, you shouldn't do it. You need to stay. You're leaving for the wrong reasons. What the wrong reasons is I can't pay my bills. I'm never going to pay back my school loans. I am working nonstop. I would get so angry when people would find out I'm a teacher and they're either like, oh, I never had a chemistry teacher that looked like you, completely disrespectful.
Yeah.
Or it must be nice to have summers off. screw you. I've never had a summer off.
No, you've been working 2
Ever.
jobs, or 3 jobs. You've worked 3 jobs.
I didn't even have a summer off in college. I went through summer classes.
Yeah.
So, it was just unreal how disrespected you are. You can't pay your bills. You're working 24/7. And you're just, to some, at a private school, you're a machine. Give me my grades. And in the public school, it meant more. Like if I had to choose to go back to public or private, I would go to public school.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
But I had a lot of guilt leaving.
Yeah.
And I had to love myself enough to say, you gotta toughen up. You're doing what's best for you. You have to tune out everybody else.
Yeah. And that's love in the sense that you had to believe that you were.
I had to believe I was worth
correct,
it, and I was
and
right.
You were worth it. So it's kind of funny because I could hear a little bit of toughening in there, but it's not toughening to be tougher. It was toughening to be okay loving yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. Is you almost had to like push and motivate yourself to love yourself.
You have to fight the people pleaser.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good, very, very, very good point. Yes.
Yeah, because that was an unhealthy development throughout my life, is developing people pleasing, and I wanted to please people that I didn't give a shit about.
They didn't give a shit about you.
And they didn't care about me.
Yeah.
I was single, and it was just tough. The stories. But I was also comparing myself to people that were married to like surgeons, and they teach because they're passionate about it, and they're stable. They didn't have a ton of student debt. Their parents took care of them. Like just different life circumstances set them up so they could focus on their passion, and I didn't have that opportunity.
And that could be a huge difference. Is not that one thing is good and the other thing is bad, or one's honorable and the other's not. It's just. The reality of the situation is if you're making $30,000, but your spouse is making $300,000,
you're good.
It's not as much of a concern.
Right.
If you're making $30,000 and you're alone, that is really hard.
Yep.
Very hard.
Yeah, and so that's where I was.
Yeah.
My first year teaching, my contract was $19,500 for the year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they said if you coach track, you can get an extra $1,000 for the year. Yeah. Not $1,000 per month.
So $2 an hour.
it worked out to like 68 cents.
Oh God.
Because I did the math.
Yeah.
Because I was pissed.
Yeah.
So there I am teaching. You're there early, and you stay late, and then you stay for coaching, and you go to meets and travel. $20,000, and I had that because they didn't give me one extra class that would technically make me full time.
Oh, they were playing one of those little games.
So I was part time. So I thought, okay, normal world. If I'm part time, I can get a second job.
Oh yeah, no, it's part time in title, but full time in hours.
I had second jobs in Philly.
Yeah.
So I would leave for my second job, and I would get basically like called into the principal's office, like you aren't here. The students were looking for you, or the parent wanted to talk to you, or something. I said, this is a part-time job. You told me this is part-time.
Yeah.
And when I don't have classes, I can come in. I assumed I'd be able to get a job in the morning or in the evening, and then come in. And I then had to quit the second job because optics and our customers weren't getting what they were paying for. So then I had no second job.
I believe they ain't paying me; they're paying you.
$20,000. I had a roommate. That shared a townhouse with me. Yeah. I think I spent $40 a month on food. It was rough, and I had no social life because I was always working. None whatsoever. I couldn't take care of myself. And this is the United States.
Yeah.
And anytime I had a savings, it would be wiped out because I had medical bills or something. And
yeah, something always comes up.
I was so tired of not being able to take care of myself and sending students off to these like Ivy League schools so they can set themselves up for success and do something with their lives.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. Like there's a giver perspective in your personality, and I feel like I have that as well to a degree. But there's also a crossover point to where you can give of yourself to help others, but the more worse your condition gets, that giver component starts to turn into resentment.
Yes, absolutely, and that's not healthy.
No, not healthy at all. But it's understandable. You know, like you said, is if the school has this huge budget and it looks as though, like optics wise, you said, it looks as though there's more money, but they're only paying you $19,000. It's like, hey, this is a little reasonable for me to be frustrated.
Tuition was more than that.
Yeah, so that's something where it can be challenging if a listener is feeling that, like they have that people pleasing component. Maybe they like to help others. There's this passion to help others,
right?
But it's starting to feel like resentment.
Yep. Then
that's typically a sign that you're burned out and you need a little more balance.
Yes, I was
you
just
need more
going to
of
say
that
that.
love to take care of
say
yourself.
That. Yeah. I'm glad you touched on that burnout topic because that made me think back to that because it's an absolute indicator and sign for burnout.
Mm-hmm.
But now I look back and I'm very grateful I did.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I left. I'm bummed. I'm bummed I had to for survival.
That's a good point. Yeah, like you enjoyed teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like if I could do teaching and make a better salary out of it, then, why wouldn't I have done it? But it just didn't work salary-wise.
Yeah. And I loved it. I really loved teaching. And I remember it was one of those where we say like a God nod moment where you say, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And if this thing doesn't work out, oh, well.
Yeah.
So I remember saying before I did leave, I went to the principal and I said, I'm going to need a raise. I asked for $1,000 more a year.
Yeah, which is
to compensate for gas because I moved.
Yeah.
And they told me they didn't have the budget for it.
Mm-hmm.
I resigned 3 weeks later.
Yeah. It's like that gave you a little bit of a sign.
That's insulting.
Well, that's a good sign is like you started to try to set boundaries and take care of yourself.
Yep.
And if the environment you were in didn't support that, even just the smallest little bit of self-care, then that tells you as best as you can and to whatever degree you can control to start to remove yourself from that environment or those people.
Yeah, and that was people thing. That would probably be one of the first times I set a boundary, or I said that was the first true tough love, like love myself.
Awesome.
Because I need to do this for me, and I just have to tune out the negativity, it out. I
remember when I first opened the gym, I was training people a minimum of 55 hours a week, and that's in person, face to face. Not like they spent half the session on a treadmill and then I talked to them the second half. But then I was doing all the other jobs of owning the business.
Yeah.
But at the time, I had done that for such a while that I was getting destroyed from standing, 10 hours a day, plus doing everything else, not getting great sleep. And I remember one of the changes I had made was I had great, amazing clients because they all told me to charge more. Because they're like, Rob, you're never going to last. Like, we can see you're tired. Like, I was always show up on time, always enthusiastic. But they're like, we can see you're tired. We can see you're destroyed. Yeah. And, like, they just knew. So they're like, charge more. So I charged more, no one left.
Good.
And I was like, that was great. I made more money, but I'm still destroyed. so then I charged again more, no one left, which was amazing. Wonderful sign for business. I ended up doubling my price and no one left. But then I eventually had to set a boundary where at the time I had really bad plantar fasciitis that was like very, very, very painful all day. Yeah. And I had a couple other things going on. But I remember I said, okay, I'm going to take the mornings for myself now. So I will train myself in the first 2 hours of the day, and then I'm not going to start training clients till 10 a.m. And I remember I was telling my parents at the time, is I was like, I have to make this change even if I go out of business. Like, even if something goes horribly bad, if I were to continue down the path I was going down, all of a sudden I wouldn't have worked out at all. My feet would have been so bad I would have had to have surgery, or I would have got fat and out of shape. I wouldn't even have worked out, even though I own a gym. Like, the quality of my life would have gotten to a point where
plummeted.
I wasn't willing to let it go there.
Right.
So I had to set that boundary, and thankfully it worked. You know, we're still here.
We're here.
But that was hard. Like, setting those boundaries is hard.
Yeah, very hard.
You do have to risk. But what's unfortunate is you and I, it has to get so damn miserable to where by the time we set a boundary, it was like beyond when we should have set a boundary.
Yeah,
like,
I think
way beyond.
We're still working on that.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, but that is a great example. It's very similar.
Yeah, you just have to, if you feel that resentment happening, if you feel like I'm supposed to be loving what I'm doing, I'm supposed to be passionate about talking to people, helping people, like if the joy of your life is now becoming resentment, then that is a clear sign you got to set boundaries and start making changes. Even if everything crashes and burns, at least you're going to crash and burn in the direction of something could have been better.
Yes.
Rather than crashing and burning by just letting things continue to burn and crash.
Yeah.
So you already know the path you're going now isn't working, which is why the resentment is there. Usually you don't even feel enjoyment in anything.
Malaise.
You're disconnected from everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
So continuing down that is just going to get you more of that.
Right.
So you have to make a change. It can be very scary. But what I remember telling myself was, how scary would it be to continue to see what happens this way?
That's exactly what I told myself. That's exactly what I told myself. I was like, can I be here in 10 years and be this freaking broke, bitter? Like, no. Like, I did not. No. I did not do what I did in my life to end up here.
Yeah.
What is it? I didn't come this far to only come this far.
Exactly, yeah.
Screw it.
Yeah. So that could be
up.
something to think of, like, that is on the loving side, is you have to love yourself enough to sometimes take risks.
Yeah.
To take a risk by setting a boundary.
Yeah.
And even if it, shits the bed, at least you're in a new bed. Yeah. Or like they have that phrase, like, same shit, different day.
Yeah,
at least it's new shit.
Yeah, new shit, different day.
Yeah. It's
hilarious.
Just, you have to make that step because you know what you're going to get if you don't. It's just more of whatever you have now, which you don't like.
Wise words.
Yes. So when is the time that you had to be tough on yourself? So we have a love example. Do we have a tough example?
Yeah, let's fast forward a few years from when I had busted my ass to go from teaching to apparently not marketable whatsoever. So bounced around jobs. And then I kept taking every job that was offered to me so I could continue to make, okay, it's more money, great. I need that, and this is more money, great. And never really thought about what I wanted. I didn't have the luxury to think about what I wanted. I wanted to teach, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I had a really amazing opportunity that I was so excited about, but I didn't let myself get excited. Because if I get excited, I get nervous because shit happens and goes sideways. So I didn't let myself get excited. I got this job offer. I was stoked. It was like the first big bump in salary. I was so excited and didn't let myself get there. And until I said, okay, they want me to pick up my computer. It's going to happen. I can maybe let myself get excited now. Yeah. And when COVID happened, it was just starting, March of 2020. And I've talked about this in other podcasts, but when they pulled the offer at the end of the day on Friday when I was supposed to start on Monday, and I broke down so hard. I called you. I think you got home at lightning speed.
I drove through every single stoplight.
I am glad you are safe.
Yeah.
But I was. It just reinforced good things don't happen. I'm never gonna get where I need to be. I should have trusted my gut and stayed because I knew. I remember teaching Duke Tip talking about that a pandemic was going to happen in our lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Because I taught virology and we talked about it, and I remember talking about it. And I was like, this has all the signs. This is going to be big. This isn't going to be good. It was a food company. So there's something, my spidey sense was saying, don't do it. Stay. But I was miserable where I was.
The job before was
I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I knew like you were saying, it's worth the risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's different shit, or same shit, but different bed.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I was devastated. Yeah. So much so that I still have symptoms of PTSD.
Yeah.
From this time
mm-hmm.
of our life. And I remember saying, okay, I am going to, this isn't you. You don't feel sorry for yourself. If you need to make a change, you make a freaking change.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, get yourself together. I gave myself the weekend, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I said, okay, F it. And I said, I'm going to give myself 2 days to be sad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pull my shit together.
Yeah.
And, the scrappiness that got me to that point had to get me out of it.
Yeah, and you cranked it up.
I did.
You applied to how many jobs?
600.
600 jobs.
Yep.
And that's not like an exaggeration. You literally applied
I did.
to 600
I have
jobs.
all of the email rejections.
Yes.
Still.
As far down as working at, not that this is a down job.
Yeah, we'll just say I was going to be a cashier somewhere.
Yeah, from where you were to be doing a cashier was.
But at the same time,
yeah.
I remind me where we were so I don't forget.
Sure.
But when I was teaching, one of the many jobs I had, I worked for this contracting company, but for manual labor. And we were just talking about the other day. And if I had openings in my schedule and they had a shift, I could pick it up. And it was always different.
Yeah.
I was either stocking the salad bar in the cafe at Lowe's. Mm-hmm. I was cleaning up food and buffets at the Ballantine Country Club. I was a cater waiter. What are they at banquets?
Oh, okay.
And I was, ad hoc. If they needed someone, I would walk around with a tray and collect dirty dishes.
Mm-hmm.
This is with 2 degrees.
Yeah.
And
tough.
Teaching, and my stuff was used in marketing and what have you.
Yeah.
And so all of that to say, nothing was beneath me.
Yeah.
Nothing's beneath me.
You and I both have had jobs where we cleaned toilets. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
For extensive time.
Yeah,
yes.
all of these. So to say, okay, I'll just be a cashier, because I've always had to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was my natural. Okay, I can do that. I'll go do that.
Yeah.
Because I had to serve people that I went to CrossFit with, right? Because CrossFit's expensive.
Yes.
I couldn't afford it, so I coached and I got my membership.
Yeah.
But I remember cleaning up the salad bar of the people I was in CrossFit classes with.
Yeah.
And I was serving them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a humbling experience. But I told myself, this is good for you, because my dad always said, you run into the same people going up in life as you do coming down. Mm-hmm. No one is beneath you. You treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO.
Yeah.
And I've raised myself, and I've always believed that.
Yeah.
So when this happened, I was going to all of these other little jobs, and we both said that was another level of the self-love.
Yeah.
No, I was in.
I was in. Telling me, you're like, I'm going to be a cashier. I'm like, number one, no.
Yeah.
Number two, it's a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So double no.
Yeah. But I said, okay.
Crazy.
So I was in grad school at the time, and I doubled down, and I kept doing my work.
Yeah.
I signed up for 2 certifications because I was supposed to get my PMP. They canceled that testing date because of COVID, and people couldn't sit in a room together, so I couldn't take that to get ahead. So I found other certifications.
Got that job with that guy.
I got a random consulting job. which was still education based and project. It like blended. It just
was
made sense.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
for
just
what it
made
was.
sense.
Yeah.
And I needed to. I did very well in just flipping that switch of like, screw being sad for myself. I am going to do well in school, which I did. I am going to find a little job. I am going to apply to everything I can under the sun.
Yep.
And I think we went for like walks every night.
Yeah, you did the picture perfect job of let me take whatever negative energy I would have and put it into proactive activities.
Right.
So that would be applying to jobs, researching like extra certifications. Rather than sitting in the house and watching TV, which feels depressing, we went for walks. Like you did the perfect job of, okay, let me flip this switch.
Yeah, and I wasn't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was like, and I wasn't bitter about anything. Like,
No,
I
you
kept
flipped
my
your mindset
positive.
and just said, this is what it is.
Yep.
This is what it is, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it because this is what it
Can't
is.
do anything about it.
Yeah.
All I can do is try and change the circumstance. And so I had to toughen up and say, suck it up. You're not going to do this. This isn't who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good example.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What about you?
It's kind of interesting. Like I was thinking a little bit of before we started the podcast. Like, I feel like I've had to be tough on myself a lot in life.
Yes.
Because of where I was mindset and physicality wise at like say 13, 14 into 15. And then all of a sudden at 15 I didn't like that version of myself. And it had a long way to go.
Yeah.
So I had to teach myself I played a lot of video games when I was younger. And I remember teaching myself I would be like play a football game, and I'm like, here I am trying to design this athlete with like 99 speed, 99 strength, all this stuff, and I'm like, but I'm a fat piece of crap just standing here holding the controller. I was like, so I'm making this perfect athlete, and it's going to take me 3 hours, like 3.5 hours playing this video game. And like I could just go work out for 3.5 hours. Like I could be the athlete.
Yeah.
So that mindset started creeping in, which was great. And then I had to deal with the addiction of video games. In the sense to where in a video game, everything can be perfect.
Yep.
You can win a football game 77-0, and it feels good. If I went out and I tried to bench 95 pounds the first time I ever bench pressed, and I got pinned under the bar.
Yeah.
I got pinned under 95 pounds, and I had to roll the bar off of my belly, like down my chest, and I had purple streaks from like a bruising. And so it's like, okay, I could go out in the garage and fail at 95-pound bench press, or I could play a video game and win 77-0.
Yep.
Which you're going to pick? You're going to pick the video game.
Yeah.
So then I'm starting like, well, this isn't healthy. So then I was like, okay, every time I score a touchdown, let me do 7 push-ups. And then if I scored 2 touchdowns, I got 14 points, I do 14 push-ups. I very quickly stopped winning games 77-0 because I didn't want to do that many freaking push-ups. So that kind of broke me a little bit from the video game. So I had to be tough in that. And then one large one that has been a thing that's developed through my whole life is, you and I have talked about this, and I've talked about this on past podcasts, is I'm tired all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't get great quality of sleep. And even my mom, like, if you don't talk to my mom and she's sitting down and no one's talking to her, within 5 minutes she'll fall asleep. And I have that, if not worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'll fall asleep if I don't have something mentally active or physically active or something.
Yeah.
So the challenge I had with that was whenever if you normally sleep, say you get a perfect night's sleep from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., it's 8 hours, you should feel refreshed. I have never. Like
You still feel like you
up.
got hit by a bus.
Yeah, like you just wake up and like your alarm will go off and you're like, I'm tired. Like I'm tired as enough that I could continue to sleep if I wanted to. And it's then learning that that's never going to go away.
Yeah.
And it took me my entire 20s. So it took me a decade to realize that no matter what I did, that's never going to go away.
That really is tough.
So then I just had to learn to wake up and do what I'm supposed to do, feeling tired all day.
Ugh.
Yeah. And it's odd. Like you've helped me very much, like improve the quality of my sleep.
Good.
With various things. But it's still there.
Yeah.
Like if I have a weekend or a day where I don't have to get up and I want to sleep in, I will sleep in, and I could sleep for 10 hours and still feel like I could sleep for more.
Yeah.
But that's been something where I've had to be tough on myself, is to say, I don't think I ever had a point where I felt sorry for myself. I would just feel like, man, I'm tired all day. Like, this is a bummer. It's annoying. It's frustrating because you're not feeling fired up for life. You're not excited for life when you're tired. But you're still going to get all your work done, still going to pay your bills, still going to do all the crap that you should do. And it's like, well, can't I just do it not tired one day? Like, can I just not be tired one day? And that feeling never solved itself. So then I just had to be tough and say, okay, this is your life, man. Like, you've trained people with, like, major injuries, huge injuries. Like, I've trained special needs where they've had neurological issues. I've trained people where they've lost limbs, had military, problems, accidents, injuries, and stuff. People with genetic disorders and diseases and stuff. So when I put into perspective that, oh, you big baby, you're just tired. Like, whoop-de frickin' do. I can name 100 people that I've looked in their face, I know their names, and they would give anything in life to only feel tired.
To only be tired, yeah.
So that started kind of forcing me to be tougher.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things was I used to watch the ESPN 60 for 60.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had wonderful specials,
Yeah.
which were stories such as that, where people had very rare and very negative things happen to them, and yet they came out the other side with something. And there's many stories that I connected with along with clients, and then that was my way of toughening myself, was to say it could be worse, so be thankful for what you have.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
just make the most of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's tough, and I'm glad you're starting to sleep a little better. Like, you're getting the best quality of the
This
shitty
is the best quality
quality
sleep I've had in my entire life ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember when I was in that phase, losing the opportunity and trying to just reset my mindset. I remember making a post on Instagram, and someone that was a friend just messaged me and laid into me and, like, screw you, this is hard for some people.
What was the post to you?
It was a repost of, if you're coming out of this without a new skill or new something, you never wanted it in the first place. It was like one of those
time.
You wasted time. As a way of, like, I needed that for me. I don't post on Instagram for other people. I like looking back at it. I like seeing progress. But I remember just reposting that, and I got laid into, and I thought, screw you, I lost my effing job. At least you have a job. Like, I am going to therapy. I am just because I post something motivational because I need it. I got attacked from a former friend. We don't talk anymore, but that was so weird.
It's a bummer, yeah.
And I thought, you know what? It's okay. I need to do this for me. And what's the phrase of, like, people will show you who they are, just wait long enough.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a thing. So, just continue to get more selective and put yourself first. And I think that was, like, the start.
Well,
or, like, amped it up a little bit.
Yeah, especially coming from a people-pleasing background, to have somebody be unpleased with you.
Yeah, it just had to be like, meh.
It, like, learning to be like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Like, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah, like, I'm okay with it because I believe what I'm doing is best for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a direct attack, like you didn't put the person's name on it.
Right.
So, so you can rationalize and say, it triggered them, and I feel bad for them that they're going through something, otherwise they wouldn't have felt so triggered.
Right.
So I hope they're okay, and I hope whatever they're dealing with goes okay. But at the same time, I don't have to apologize for being me, I don't have to hide being me.
Right.
And this was for me.
This was for me.
Yeah. And learning to say, like, it's okay if other people aren't happy. Like,
and I responded back, and then that was the end of it. Because, it's like, okay, pot kettle, right? You're judging me. You think I'm judging you, and this isn't about you. If you think it's about you, it is what you always say.
That's what I always say about podcasts. Yes.
So I just fine.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
But that's another example. Yeah, and that's something for listeners. If you're struggling with this tough love stuff, one of the advices we gave. I don't think advices is plural. A little bit
Some of the advice?
yeah, some of the advice. That's a little callback to Arnold Schwarzenegger in Pumping Iron.
Yeah.
But some of the advice we gave with love is, you're in trouble when giving to others starts to breed resentment.
Yeah.
So that usually means you need to love yourself a little bit more and start taking better care of yourself. When you need to be tougher on yourself, what do you think are some triggers, or what are some advice that you would give? One thing I would think of is if you're struggling with something, to put it in perspective. So for me, it helped a lot, is to put my struggles in perspective with the scope of all the other struggles of people I knew, and to realize, my struggles are a struggle. They're real. Like, I don't want to take away from the legitimacy of it, but in the scope of things, could be worse. So let me just say, this is what it is. Let me work with it.
Yeah.
I want to work to improve it, but I'm just going to accept it where it is. I'm going to move on from here, rather than having that woe is me.
Right.
And then they never get tough on themselves to get better.
I think one thing is it depends on how well the person knows themselves.
Okay.
Because I caught myself being something I didn't want to be.
Oh, okay.
But that's tough to say that's advice. But I'll say that's advice. Like, I didn't want to have this pity party for me every day. I didn't want to be angry at people that were cheating the system and double dipping with unemployment when I couldn't get it, even though I'd been paying into the system. I was told I quit my job, and I didn't. Like, I had to take that, and instead of being angry and bitter, to recognize it and say, this is an opportunity to work on not being that person. So being the type of person to catch it and to reframe it, to know who you want to be as a person, and to always bring things back to, this isn't who I want to be. And I caught myself.
I think that's good. Like, what brings to my mind is, am I happy with the way my life is?
Yeah.
If the answer is no,
do something. Right.
And that can be, maybe you have to love yourself in order to make it different, set better boundaries, or maybe you need to be tough on yourself to make it different.
Right.
To say, okay, I need to tighten up. I need to, stop complaining, stop whining. One of the things that comes up for clients often with nutrition is they'll struggle with consistency.
Yeah.
And the advice that we give is, hey, here's your calorie targets, here's your protein targets. We know based on these and your meal schedule, for you, okay, if you're eating breakfast on the go, here's 2 or 3 options. If you typically eat lunch at work, here's 2 or 3 options. If you like dinner with the family, here's 2 or 3 ways to structure dinner with family where you can still manipulate the portion sizes for you while the family still has food they like. So here are 2 or 3 options, here are 2 or 3 options, here are 2 or 3 options.
Yeah.
But when we look at their nutrition journal,
out the window.
Random. Completely random.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, why aren't we choosing through the journal options? Well, I just didn't have this food at the house. Or, I thought about having that, but I decided to go out with my friends instead and do this other thing. And you start to find all these excuses around it. And it's like, well, how about if we didn't have time for shopping, you use Instacart or Amazon? Or let's find foods that are easier for you to have. Is this a challenging thing? Like, there's the next step of problem solving.
Right.
And that's where people will just say like, oh, I missed my numbers. And that's it. That's just dead silent. And it's
your face.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing about that?
I feel like everyone could see your face when you
do that. Probably. Yeah. So it's like, if you missed your numbers, that indicates that what we're doing isn't working. Let's do something different. But so often people don't do the different.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they would need a little more toughness.
Yeah.
Is they need to say to themselves, hey, I'm seeing that this is falling short.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be okay with that.
Right.
I should want to make that better. Let me do what it takes to make that better, even if it's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. Because my other option is to stay where I am, which is uncomfortable. So I'm either going to stay unhealthy, unhappy, out of shape, whatever. If their goal is working with us to get leaner, they're probably not as lean as they want. If their goal is to get bigger muscle, they probably don't have the big muscles yet. So it's like, you're either going to stay unhappy with where you are and the effort you're putting in, or you might have to be temporarily unhappy to put in extra effort, but then you're going to be happy because you got your results.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the tough love balance. And I don't know. I thought it would just be fun to talk, to hear, let people hear
this was fun. It was,
the struggles and ways people deal with that.
Yeah, it was good to revisit some of that, and it's more people. I feel like it's a spectrum, so someone's on one end, everybody's on one of the ends. Yeah. So it's relevant to everybody.
So I was thinking to close out the advice that we would give to our younger selves. So the advice that I would give to myself, like if I look back at like my early 20s and when I was struggling with things I didn't like, is change it faster.
Yeah. Because
when I didn't like something in my life, I did actually put effort to change. Very rarely did I ever just kind of sit still and be unhappy. But I would have liked to, in certain moments of my life, said, hey, be more aggressive. Like, change this faster. Make bigger efforts. Let's get going. Let's move.
Yeah.
So the advice I would give to my younger self is, if there's something I don't like in life, change it. And change it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice to give to your younger self?
And I chuckled because it's like, oof, there's a list, you know?
Yeah.
I would say, like a go where you're celebrated kind of a thing.
Oh, okay.
Like, I wish I would have realized weightlifting was a thing. There was no YouTube. Like, there wasn't what is out there now to know. And I am so disappointed. So I probably would have just said, dig for other things.
That's good.
Use your natural talents versus trying to fit in where you don't.
Oh, I love that advice. Like, do what you're good at rather than trying to become good at things just because other people are good at it.
Another one would be get a different degree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. But, I mean...
What's interesting is your struggles have also become part of your identity.
Right, and that's why it's tough. Like we always say, what would you change? Well, if I changed anything, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough to say, like, course correct. I could say, just don't be a people pleaser. Like,
that's
stop
good.
that.
That'd
That's the
very
advice.
Good advice. Yes.
And that's the only thing that, it would still probably change the trajectory. But that would be what I say.
Yeah, just take care of yourself.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having the discussion with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and then if anybody has any questions, if you need anything, you can always reach out on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. On the bottom of the homepage is a contact form. You can send a message at any time. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people you share it with, the more people can help. If you share it on social media, that does reach the most amount of people. So if you have a podcast that you connect with someday, go ahead and share it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Just the more eyes we can get on the podcast, the more people can be helped by it. If you like the podcast, you can also consider donating to support the podcast, which can be done on our website. And if you like the information we present in the podcast, we actually share different other information on our social media platforms on Instagram and YouTube. Tons of videos and good content on there. So find us and follow us under the name Brutal Iron Gym. Well, thank you, Meredith, for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, and then as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.